this winter's not my winter. Next winter's my winter, you know. So clary sage is probably be started more like in October or something like that. Okay, so you've got those started. You're looking at squash now because we're going into April. You might start looking at, you know, another succession of tomatoes. Of course, you're going to be doing successions of lettuce and those kinds of things nonstop, right? You're just doing successions all the time. You know, you've got your seed production system going now, right? It never hurts to start stuff. What happens if you can't use it? You don't know somebody that can use it? Call me up. I'll find you somebody, you know. Don't try to go to a farmer's market and dump your plants at a farmer's market. Nowadays, the farmers will chase you out of there, you know. But it used to be a real pain to farmers. You know, some home gardener started way too many plants and they show up and they're going to sell them real cheap to get rid of them. That's not fair to the farmers, you know. But you can give them to Gardens for the Hungry or whatever, you know. You can trade them with your friends. You know, there's ways to use them. Start your successions, you know. You got your warm weather crops going. You're going to do successions of those too. There's some details that are like not really going to fit in this class. I'm hoping to get Tom Elmore to teach grafting for tomatoes. But you may well want to have started tomatoes a little early because it's going to slow them down to be grafted. So you might go back into like early March for those. And you got to plant both the rootstock and the top part of the plant. You got to plant them at the same time. Johnny's has a great selection. One of the rootstocks is Maxifort. I know that. But they describe the whole thing, you know. It's not easy to do without some guidance. You know, I attended one workshop and tried to teach Rocco, and he was in a hurry and I was in a hurry. We had absolute failure. So I want that workshop so we can get trained again and do it right. You know.
And which plant was that?
You can actually do grafts of a lot of different plants. Peppers, tomatoes, eggplant, and squash can all be grafted. Which means, I mean, I already mentioned that Machada is resistant to vine borers. Vine borers only attack the bottom, like, few inches of a plant. You could graft after that bottom few inches and put a peepal, probably, I'm pretty sure, on a Machada. And then you've got vine borer resistance, and you're growing, you know, Zephyr or something with vine borer resistance, which is pretty darn great. You know? Okay, so sometime in April, you're going to start thinking about growing things like basil. You know, starting to seeding things like basil. They're really, you know, heat-sensitive herbs. And then you've kind of like, you know, you have a little bit of a breather there, except for your successions of lettuce and stuff, which you always have to do. Your big push is going to be out in the garden by then. You don't want to think about all. I mean, get off my back. You know, I got to get this stuff on the ground. You know, it's time to slow down. Though, if you're really over the top, you could have started corn inside and planted it out, and it'd be the earliest corn you ate. Start it in something big. It does got a tap root. You know, don't start in anything smaller than a 4-inch pot. In California, where you had to start things, remember I said the carrots got eaten off and stuff? I started them in half-gallon milk cartons. I did not use this expensive potting soil for that. I used old potting soil with compost in it. Corn's pretty tough. It'll germinate, you know.
What kind of corn do you recommend for just a small plot for a home gardener?
That's it.
Just don't grow it, just buy it.
Well, I mean, that's probably smart, but you know what? There's an awful lot of joy to it. And you can do the Three Sisters where you grow beans up it and squash in it.
We tried.
And get some use out of it.
But you're right. We can try it again.
You can try it again. You know, if your heart's in it, make your heart sing.
We found the beans pulled over the corn.
You got to wait until the corn's at least like 12 to 14 inches tall before the beans go on.
You plant the beans.
Got it.
Yeah. And then still, you know, the corn falls over in a big wind anyways. And you can blame the beans, but corn falls over. You know, usually it produces anyways. You know, it lodges, but it turns back up and it produces. But, I mean, it's just a classic. Your corn's almost ready and there's a big thunderstorm and it's all down.
I've had beans hold it up.
Yeah, beans will help hold it up. It's true, you know. I mean, the Three Sisters does work. I like to say that really it's the extended family because in that plot you might as well have tomatillos, epazote, cilantro. You want the Three Sisters and their nieces and their cousins and their aunts. You know, there's a whole realm of those plants that all do really wonderfully together. You know. Anyway, you know, we're going to grow Silver Queen. We just decided, you know, we like Silver Queen the most. There's all these other great corns. We're going to wait till it warms up. We're growing Silver Queen. We don't have enough land to grow 4 different kinds. We're growing Silver Queen. You know, it's just like, given our choice, you know, I'm sorry, there's all these wonderful hybrids. Silver Queen rocks, you know. It's just a spectacular corn. But all of us have like a childhood memory of it, you know. What's interesting to know is that if you go to most stands, they'll tell you it's Silver Queen and it's some hybrid. Because they know silver. Yeah, right. You know, they just say, "Oh yeah, if it's white, oh yeah, it's Silver Queen," because Silver Queen sells. So you know, you find somebody if you know it's Silver Queen, then that's the stand to go back to. there's an argument to be made for growing things like tuxedo because they have really tight wrappers and the cornworms can't get in as well. Yeah. My wrap on that is when I buy corn, I look for the people that are selling things with worms in them. Because then I know they haven't poisoned the heck out of it, you know. And I can cut that worm off the top. It's, I mean, usually if they're selling fresh corn, it's just that much.
On the top.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't really care. They're apologizing. I'm saying that's fine. I'll take more. You know. Okay, so now you're outside. There's a little break, right? But guess what? There's no mercy. Okay, if you really want your Brussels sprouts to do well, you want to start those at least in May. You can start them in mid-April. The bigger they are when they go out, the better. You know, don't let them get stunted, but put them in maybe 4-packs. You're not going to grow that many of them, right? Get them nice and big. The bigger they are when they go into fall, the better they're going to do. You know, and how do I know that? I started some by mistake. I thought it was broccoli seed. I started them in April. They're best Brussels sprouts I ever grew. They were huge by the time they were starting to set
When
the
did they go on
sprouts.
the ground?
But when would they go on the ground? I would probably wait till the beginning of July.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know.
that late. Okay.
Yeah, so you got 6 weeks.
All
You know,
right.
no, that's actually 10 weeks. At least the middle of June. You know,
Okay.
frankly, I don't exactly remember, but you know,
Right.
I would just because I'm busy and they're not gonna, you know, they're not gonna. That's why I start them in a big pack so I can spend a little bit more time. You know, and if they're a little stunted, give them a good nitrogen feed. They'll take right off. You know, if they're way stunted, then it's too late. You got to start over. You know, but if not, start them in mid-May at the latest. I say. On the other hand, if you don't have them by mid-June, start them. If you don't have them by mid-July, start them. If you don't have them by mid-August, go buy them and feed the heck out of them and protect them because it's too late. But we put those in September in that greenhouse there, because it's a greenhouse, and so they're working. You know, I started them in mid-August because I knew we could grow them in a greenhouse. You know, the truth is the Savoy cabbage out there. And this is on the last video. The person that put it out thought they were Brussels sprouts, and we had Tara here, and I was running around so busy, and I was like, they look a little strange, but God, they sure are gorgeous big plants. And they were Savoy cabbage. You know. And then they got hammered by harlequin bugs anyway, so it didn't matter. That's one reason to get them out early is if you can protect them from harlequin bugs, they'll get bigger. If there's a late season onslaught, they won't be hurt as bad. You know, but that's a different class. And harlequin bugs, I must admit, is one of my greatest failings. They're really tough. You know, I've had mixed success. Okay, but now you're going into early June. It's time to start a lot of fall plants. I mean, if you start your fall plants right in late summer, you have a winter garden, you know, and people don't get that. I think, oh, and it cracks me up. People are trying to buy fall plants in September. It's like it's too late. It is fall, you know. And indeed, one year I wrote an article for the Express on that, and then somebody I really respect took over because he had to, because you know people like I were too busy and they don't pay enough, and we weren't bothering to write articles because you got to be motivated, you know. And so he was writing, and he said to start Brussels sprouts in September, and I was like, no, I just talked all about this 2 years ago, you know. It's like way too late to start Brussels sprouts then, you know. Even to put plants in the ground, unless they're in a greenhouse, it's just not going to happen, you know. You want to start things like kale, collards, the long season broccolis, the long season cauliflowers, sometime in June, you know. If you're doing the chicories, you want to grow great radicchios and stuff like that, get them going right before summer solstice, and they'll do really wonderful. They'll really mature in the fall, in the cool, and do spectacular.
Garlic is another one that goes in when?
Garlic actually goes in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah.
And harvest in the spring.
No.
In summer.
To harvest after solstice.
After solstice.
After
okay.
summer solstice, whole solstice, and you harvest it not by time, but by how many leaves are brown. You want about 40% of the leaves to be browned.
Okay.
That tells you when to harvest it, unless it's raining all the time. In which case you got to harvest it earlier, or it'll all split and rot. You know, we have a great climate for growing garlic. We got a terrible climate for when to harvest it, because we get too much rain. It does way better in a Mediterranean climate, you know. But that's life, you know. We gotta cross the bear. What can I say?
Must have been a good garlic year last year, though. Boy, there was so much good garlic at the markets. Beautiful.
Mine was terrible.
Oh, gosh.
I had tons of rain and more fusarium than I'd ever seen. Fusarium is endemic. It's always around. And usually I get a little bit of it. 75–80% of my garlic was covered up with it. And I usually have spectacular garlic.
Gaining ground. Oh,
Uh-huh.
beautiful
Yeah,
garlic
they're
this
great.
year. Oh,
It really depends
On
your microclimate. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know. And I had 2005, I was coming to market. I was pathetic in the beginning of the year, and I'm sure people thought I was making excuses. But literally, it rained every day from the end of what was it? No, I guess it was. I forget. I think it was something like the middle of April until the middle of July. It rained almost every day, and I had at least 5 or 6, 10, double-digit rain events in that time period. And I said to people, and people just look like, "What are you talking about?" Because it's just CeeLo, and if you don't live in CeeLo, you won't experience it. And even in CeeLo, green toe ground was not getting as much rain as me, And finally, it was so satisfying. I said it to the guy who runs Fox Brothers General Store. He said, "Oh yeah, I sit on my porch and watch you guys get hammered every night." I said, "There's CeeLo getting hammered again."
We watched Madison County get hammered.
And I've actually sat on my porch where Galen lives now from Green Toe Ground, and looked up the road, and it looked like I was watching a movie because it was pouring and wind was whipping incredibly, and it was like from here to the other side of the garden. There's this little window storm that I'm seeing, because you can't see it in the trees, but you can see it on the road. So that's just, you never know. But for me, it was terrible last year. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for that.
Pardon?
Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's real important. I mean, I'll also tell you, though, that until the last 2 really cold winters, I always put it off till December. It was a joke on the radio show I was on. "Pat, why are you procrastinating stuff?" Because I can. I got other things to do, and I can. And the first year, 2009, I lost 50 pounds of garlic because I could never get it in. The ground froze and never thawed. And I wasn't willing to sell it because I wanted to plant it. It was my seed stock. And it was the middle of March before I could put it in. I was like, well, that's too late now. Since then, I've learned somebody who was successful at that. I just got an email from the woman who runs Blue Ridge Ventures saying, "I didn't get my garlic and it's so wet. Can I eat it?" And I called her back because I don't like to do emails. I said, "Mary Lou, call me. Yes, you can eat it, but if you want, I can tell you how to get it in now. It might still work. Don't give up. It's too late, but I've had success. You just have to feed the heck out of it, and maybe even protect it so it gets an early start. Warm it up so it grows faster, and then protect it from late freezes and feed the heck out of it, and you might still pull it off. But that is really that's not even not best practice. That's unrecommended practice. That's desperate motions to not waste the $8 a pound, $8.50 a pound she paid for that garlic. Or maybe it was even more than that. I forget what she paid for it, but it was expensive.
So we haven't done our garlic right, but it's going to be beautiful.
It'll be beautiful.
Because you're going to feed it, and you might want to actually glaze it.
Well, we've actually got some in the ground that we planted the little seeds last year.
Oh, that's a different story.
And this is their second year, and they're all about that big, and they look happy.
They're probably going to be great.
Yeah.
All garlic, and we're kind of out of the realm of this class, but that's okay, because if you noticed, I'm willing to do that. All garlic and all alliums, right, benefit from nitrogen more than any other crop. There's this book, $87. It's mostly for like conventional growers. It's all kinds of tables for how to use pesticides and stuff, but they have other tables in there, and one of the tables is crops that respond best to optimal nitrogen, and alliums is at the very top.
Okay.
Because what they do is they make leaves, and the leaves determine the size of the sections of the onion and the bulbs of the garlic.
Okay.
The bigger the leaves, the bigger the garlic. So you start feeding those guys about mid-March, and you feed them nitrogen lots, until early May, and then you stop because they'll never harden off. Now, I've always wondered, what if I feed some longer? They'll be bigger, and what if I decide I'm just going to eat those early? They don't need to keep because I'll eat them before they rot. So maybe I feed those till the end of May, and those are huge, and I eat those first. But the ones you want to have keep, you have to stop in early May so they're not too tender and they
got that?
Don't rot out.
I think so.
Okay.
There's a book, Growing Great Garlic. He tells you all of it. I think it's Ron England or something like that.
Okay.
I haven't read it because everybody tells me what's in it. So I keep meaning to, but I haven't. Okay, so all the fall crops, start them.
In June.
June. I mean, actually, what I wouldn't start in June, I'd start mid-July if I was going to plant them out, or maybe early July, is rutabagas. I don't want them to get much heat when they have any side, when they're forming the bulb. So I would wait till probably early July to have plants that are really nice to put out in mid-August, and then they'll really boom. On the other hand, I've had just as much success seeding them the beginning of the 3rd week of July directly, and they've done really well. I don't even know if I'd start them. I didn't know you could start them in cell packs until Troy's greenhouse did it one year, and I was behind, and I bought them, and they did great.
You said you direct seeded when?
I direct seeded the beginning of the 3rd week. So at the the end, like maybe the 18th or something like that, just a little past the middle of July, is when they've worked great for me. And I've direct seeded as late as early August and had them work great too. Much past that, and you got to protect them a lot, and they get big in the spring, which works too. And they're really wonderful when they do that. They're like deep orange, and they're like almost like eating squash. I mean, there was a year where I went from hating rutabagas to falling in love with them because I'd homegrown them. And it was the only vegetable I didn't like. And that year I got into eating roots for breakfast, and it's just incredible what that does. I mean, the energy, right? I mean, you can just go. There's no crash. You got those complex carbohydrates, boy, and you go. You go and you go. And I cooked up a mess of rutabagas and squash, which is similar, and I forget what else, but I had a pot of them waiting for Diane. She had breakfast after me, and somebody was visiting. It might have been Greg. And she looked up and said, "My hero." And I said, "What?" She said, "For feeding me roots for breakfast." Because she just knew how good she was going to go all day from those roots, And they're just so delicious. I just can't, I'm definitely a vegetable fan, I mean,